Hey ladies, welcome back. I hope you had a good intermission and you're ready to hear the rest of this event. We're just going to dive right into toxicity, what it means, and hopefully you understand a little bit more about how it affects your body and your home so that you can be good steward of that. That's what we're all about here at Thriving Women Collective. So I want to talk about the difference between toxins and contaminants. So toxins are the poison or venom that comes from plants or microorganisms, whereas contaminants are something that has been adulterated chemically through a process, a man-made process. So that is biological, chemical, physical, radiological, different ways that things are somehow sometimes contaminated are just the process in which that a fragrance is changed in a lab to enhance it, or something is added to food, additives in our food to make it taste a certain way, and then also food dyes to make something, to change the color of something that otherwise would be colorless or not as appealing to the eye. So they add color to it, they add dye to it, but that dye is made in a lab and it's made with different chemicals and compounds that are added to each other that create this physiological reaction in our body that's unnatural. Those are all examples of contaminants, and they're in our food, they're in our products, they're in our self-care products, they're in our homes. So contaminants and toxins sort of both make up toxicity, and the toxicity levels in our bodies, they dictate the wellness that we can achieve and the areas in which we can thrive. So I really want to highlight the varying degrees of toxicity. You can get toxicity from single exposure and short-term exposure, like walking into someone's home and your home is not, you don't have scented candles, you don't have air fresheners in your home, you use things like a diffuser, or you just do something more natural, and you walk into somebody's home and they are super big on the scented candles, and they haven't jumped on the wagon yet, so the holistic wagon, and you walk into their home and you're there for about an hour and you walk out and you're like, I've got a headache. That's short-term exposure or a single exposure, and it is a level of toxicity, a little more fleeting, but it is a level of toxicity, and you go all the way up to levels of toxicity where it's intermittent long-term exposure, like you work in your workplace, there are toxins and you go in and out of that. That's intermittent long-term exposure. And then you have continuous exposure where maybe you haven't quite given up those plugins in your home, or the scented candles, you're a family that loves burning candles and you haven't really found that alternative yet. That's a continuous ongoing exposure. Or the hair care products you use, like you have to have that hairspray, and it's that one that works for you and it's worked for a long time, or that deodorant that works and you're good with it. That's continuous long-term exposure, and that's when you start to experience chronic exposure, and the chronic effects of that exposure. So we're gonna, in the next video, we're gonna go into how to recognize certain toxins and lower your toxicity, as well as how to combat toxicity in the form of getting enough vitamins and amino acids, which were talked a little bit about in the gut health section, and then we're also going to talk about antioxidants and how that combats the cellular degradation that happens through toxicity exposure. So go ahead and click on the next video and we'll get started.